Yo, let's fucking go. They actually pulled it off. Koby Altman and company actually did it. Give this man his flowers, and it didn't cost nearly as much as people thought it would. The Cleveland Cavaliers, in case you've been living under a fucking rock, are acquiring the services of Atlanta Hawks forward DeAndre Hunter in exchange for Caris LeVert, George Niang, and draft compensation. I am so fucking excited, man. The Philly native is averaging 19 points per game this season and shooting 46.1% from the field, including 39.3% from three-point range. He is the NBA's leading bench scorer and has the second best odds as we speak over on FanDuel at plus 360 for sixth man of the year behind Peyton Pritchard. DeAndre Hunter, my friends, has long since been a target of this Cavaliers team. And my God, he fits almost perfectly with what the Cavaliers would probably ask him to do. He can create his own offense, which eliminates the need for wing creation, an area that people tend to neglect when addressing the concerns of this team. He's a very solid perimeter shooter, especially as a catch and shoot outlet, a necessity for anybody starting at the three for the Cavs. And this isn't just some flash in the pan year, guys. Hunter is a legit good shooter. He shot 41.9% from range at the collegiate level and is a career 36.8% shooter at the NBA level. He is attempting 6.7 triples per game this year and drilling a very good 39.3%, and 5.2 of those are of the catch and shoot variety. This is a guy who can knock down a ton of shots from that catch and shoot type of shot. 39.3% on those. 1.4 of his attempts are of the pull-up variety. He's dropping 38% of those, as you can see. He's shooting 47.1% on wide open attempts, which account for 3.2 of his 6.7 overall. He's pretty damn good in the corners. Left corner, 15 to 35 for 42.9%. In the right corner, not necessarily as great, but still serviceable. 12 of 35 from 34.3%. And you can see the above the break is where the bulk of his attempts come from. 70 of 176 per NBA.com for 39.8%. And if you can see in that small graphic down there is the shot chart, which shows you that this man shoots from all over the court, which is exactly what this Cleveland Cavaliers team needs, right? This is exactly what this Cavaliers team needs out on that wing area. And perhaps most importantly, he's done all this with good volume, but he's far from just an off-ball shooter from an offensive standpoint. He's a pretty damn good driver of the basketball as well. He has 217 total drives this season and has attempted 114 total field goals off of those, completing a really solid 51.8%. And he's drawn a ton of contact when doing so. He's drawn a personal foul 9.7% of the time when he drives the ball, which has culminated in 42 free throw attempts, which he's canned 39 of. That is 92.9%, ladies and gentlemen. He draws a ton of contact. Now, overall, he's attempting 4.8 free throw attempts per game, which is 34th most in the league. That would be by far the most attempts per game on the Cavaliers right now, as Evan Mobley leads the way at 4.1 per game. And quite literally, Hunter is in the 100th percentile, as you can see here, in terms of fouls drawn per team play. Absolutely ridiculous production from him, ahead of guys like Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, and Lauri Markkanen this season. And this is an area, in my opinion, that the Cavaliers could greatly use, especially from the wing position. The Cavs have been dying for that true to size three for a very long time. And of the four players who have made starts at the three this year, Caris LeVert had been leading the way with a minuscule 2.2 free throw attempts per game. Hunter can draw contact and he can take it too, which is important to me. He's a capable drive and kick option, somebody that can go out there and, get the ball to your guys in the corners. And I know, look, this is not something that is perfect from him. It's something in an area that I would like to see him lean into more and improve upon, but he's passed the ball 54 total times off of drives. For those of you keeping track, he's passing the ball 24.9% of the time off of those 217 drives. And while he has only led to 9 assists in the area surrounding Hunter, in my opinion, with as many shooters as the Cavs can offer, would be an absolute boon for his development in that area. I do think he can grow. And if there's anybody that can bring that out of him, anybody that can develop that area of his game, it's probably Kenny Atkinson. Outside of that, he's a solid cutter, scoring 1.23 points per possession while doing so. And he's not doing that with high frequency, but on this Cavs team, he would probably adjust very well and probably up that. Just a good off-ball option to have. He's also really, really solid in transition, where he's scoring 162 total points in that area, which is in the 83rd percentile. He's good in the mid-range area, where he's completed 50% of his looks and ranks within the 80th percentile there. He's an effective finisher, having completed 61% of his looks from inside of 5 feet this season. And something that I really think is going to help this Cavs team, and I mean really believe it will, is that DeAndre Hunter is positionally versatile. Hunter is about 6'7", 6'8", with an ability to effectively play both the 3 and the 4 for a team. And for Atlanta this year, for added context, he basically split his time down the middle. 51% at small forward and 49% at the power forward position, while his splits and percentiles easily look better while he's lined up at the 3. Go figure. To know that he can give you real minutes there could be a really big thing for this Cavs team, because right now they're relying on the combo of Dean Wade and Evan Mobley, and they had been relying on George Niang, who is going with Caris in this deal to Atlanta. And Mobley's awesome, but if you're relying on Dean, you're relying on Niang, you're probably already lost come playoff time. Hunter gives them that big wing that can slot in perfectly in either spot, right? And also, let's not forget the defensive end. We're talking about a former ACC Defensive Player of the Year at the college level. Hunter is a seamless fit from a defensive standpoint. Per NBA.com, he has held his matchups to 48.9% from the field. But that, to me, isn't all telling. You got to kind of take those stats with a grain of salt. To me, he has the frame standing at about 6'8", with a massive 7.2 wingspan. You cannot tell me that he could not offer a lot on that end, potentially with a great backline of defense in the likes of Mobley and Allen. And that truly gives you the size to make up for the limitations of Spida and DG. And what also you have to take into consideration here is what this does to the likes of a Max Strus, right? It allows him to be more and more, it allows him to play at the position that he was really brought into play, not necessarily small forward long term. This allows him to shift back into more of a 2-guard role. To me, I mean, you just see what he is able to do out there in terms of DeAndre Hunter's offensive skill set. I think it just fits in so damn well, man. But back to Max Strus. Max has played 47% of his minutes at small forward this season, with 51% coming at shooting guard, and I believe 1% actually at the power forward spot. I think this is the type of deal that is not necessarily going to impact him all that much. In fact, I think it's going to impact his level of play in the idea of not having him have to focus defensively on opposing teams' best perimeter wing out there, which is nice. And the same couldn't be said of Isaac Okoro when he returns, and in keeping Dean Wade, which I think people need to understand what that means. Now you have options here. You have options on the wing. It only cost you, as of reading the breakout here, the deal that was announced by Shams, it only cost you Niang and LeVert in terms of actual rotational players. So you didn't get rid of Dean. You didn't get rid of Isaac. You didn't get rid of Jalen Tyson, who a lot of people were really, really worried about. And you kept all of them. So you have options out at the wing position. And to me, that speaks volumes about the job that Koby Altman is capable of doing. So at this point, I just want people, if you're questioning Koby Altman, I just want you to shut the fuck up, take a breath, and understand what this man has put together. Because now I don't know what the starting lineup is going to be. I'm assuming that DeAndre Hunter is going to be slotted into that starter's position over Max Strus, but who knows with what Kenny Atkinson has in store. But I am going to assume that your starting lineup is now Darius, Garland, Donovan Mitchell, DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen. Who can fuck with that? I mean, I don't know. Y'all tell me, maybe I'm just a prisoner of the moment and caught up in it, but who's fucking with that right now? Because to me, that is the best starting five in basketball. There are very few that can say that. And we already have 3 All-Stars right now going heading to the Bay for the All-Star game. And you're adding DeAndre Hunter, the league's best scorer off the bench. It's insane to me that Koby was able to pull this off without having to sacrifice the likes of Isaac Okoro, Jalen Tyson, and more, man. And look, I'm just so damn excited about this. I truly am. It's something that I felt that was going to happen last night, watching Caris LeVert just kind of stink it up, wondering if he already knew it was coming down the pipeline. And now we don't have to ask ourselves, right? We don't have to ask ourselves, is Koby Altman going to make this move or not? Because that is exactly what has happened. And I'm here for it, man. I am so damn here for it. And this is just awesome. And in the full spirit of transparency, I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention Hunter's availability. Hunter has never played more than 67 games in a season, and he did that 2 years ago. Since then, he's played 57 total games last year and appeared in 37 this year for the Hawks. All of that said, I think it's worth it. I think this deal is absolutely worth it because he has been available when it matters the most. Here you can see him playing up against the Boston Celtics in the last series that the Hawks had against, in the playoffs, which is 2022-23, if I'm not mistaken. They missed last year's postseason, but he is impactful. He's been pretty damn impactful in the playoff environment. He's averaging 16.3 points and 4.6 rebounds while completing 48% of his field goals, including 40% from three-point range across 16 total playoff appearances in 3 years total. So it's not just 1 year. You have a steady line of impact in the playoffs. And he did that against Boston the last time that the Hawks made the playoffs. He's a playoff riser, in my opinion. And that's more than I can say about the current wing group. So this is worth it. And to be fair, these are the same discussions that we'd be having had the Cavs managed to acquire a Cam Johnson, who has also dealt with injury woes. We already know what's going on with Dean. We already know what's going on with Isaac and company. So to have the ability to play a DeAndre Hunter now, to be able to include him in that wing group, that's just awesome. But for the cost here, it's absolutely worth it. And last but not least, it should be discounted. It should not be discounted, rather, that Hunter is on a manageable contract. At 27, he is under team control for at least the next 3 seasons. The Cavaliers, in terms of what they have to offer in terms of their roster construction right now, that, my friends, means that the Cavaliers have Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, and now DeAndre Hunter, all under contract for at least the next year and a half, right? You're going to have some things to figure out in the 2026-27 season, but for the foreseeable future, the Cavaliers have at least 8 rotational locks signed up right now, all under control for the next year and a half. And if you find a way to re-sign Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill, and you elevate Jalen Tyson and get some of the young talent involved here, you're gravy, along with whatever other moves that Koby Altman is able to pull off. And look, I'm in here. I'm not sure if anybody else has been included in that, so feel free to let me know when I get to the comment section here. I don't know who else outside of LeVert and Niang could potentially be acquired if this ends up turning into a 3-team deal, which is very well could, I suppose. But as of right now, as of what I have read, LeVert and Niang are the only 2 rotational players shipped out. So kudos again to Koby Altman for being able to put this together. And I'm just very, very excited about this, man. I truly am. Kudos to him for being able to pull the trigger on that. And one of the best things about Koby is that he has been one of the best in the business at not making panic moves to appease us fans. Truly, this one was well worth it, though. So show him some damn respect. I want to see nothing else being said about Koby Altman not being able to put together pieces around this core, or he hasn't done anything since the Donovan Mitchell trade, or none of that bullshit. Put some respect on his damn name. And here's the sour part, right? I can't discuss this trade without giving thanks to Caris LeVert and Georges Niang, 2 guys who, honestly, they have big fans in me right now. You know, Caris, for me, as you're watching this the performance that he put up against the Boston Celtics a couple of years ago, where he put up 41 points in an overtime victory over them. He's an Ohio guy, and I'm always going to have love for him. And I remember the way I felt when he was acquired, right? I was a little on the fence about the acquisition of LeVert at the time, but he quickly got some buy-in for me. And I know things have been up and down from a consistency standpoint. I know that Caris LeVert has not always been the most popular player in town due to his, his habit of taking contested mid-range jumpers and not necessarily playing within the flow of the offense. But this season saw kind of a return to form from him, playing some of the best basketball he had prior to that wrist injury under Kenny Atkinson, where he had essentially streamlined his game to being at the rim or a three-point shot. And that, for a early portion of the season, at the very least, was what we were getting out of Caris LeVert. And, the consistency issues, that's just the Caris LeVert roller coaster. He has stretches where he plays very, very well, and then he has stretches where he just is absent, even though he's out there. Last night felt like the latter. Last night felt like it was emotionless basketball, and perhaps the context needs to be added that maybe he knew he was going to be dealt. Maybe he knew that was his last game in the wine and gold. And from a mental aspect, I'm sure that is something that weighed heavily upon him and contributed to him having one of the worst performances that we have seen from him all season long. But I will always be thankful for the contributions that one Caris LeVert brought to the table in his, 3.5, 4 seasons that he's been here. And I wish him the very best. And in terms of Georges Niang, he has endeared himself to me through his, no nonsense, fiery face, in your face attitude on the court and being a jokester off of it. I've had numerous conversations with Georges Niang, and some of them have been pleasant, some of them haven't been. I literally told George to his face, basically, that I don't think you're going to be in the playoff rotation. And we had fun little back and forths about that. And whatever you feel about him, however you feel about his ability on the defensive end or inability to pull down rebounds, he was a good addition from a chemistry standpoint for this team, considering his friendship with Donovan Mitchell and others on the roster. And him and Tristan Thompson, with their post-game coverage, that has been something that's been right up there in terms of fun times for me. And I just think he was a necessary add at the time. It wasn't by no means a perfect acquisition by Koby Altman, but it was something that I think was necessary at the time, considering the lack of spacing in that front court. And by and large, he had brought that. He was basically a 40% shooter from 3-point range this season. But I know the huge gripe with him was that he was giving it right back on the defensive end and on the boards. And we've seen that play out the last couple of games for him. He had an atrocious game against the Boston Celtics where we felt that he was overplayed, or at least I felt he was overplayed. And I understand the rationales for why they may have been, but it just exposed everything that was wrong with that type of matchup. But at the end of the day, I'll always be proud of the contributions that both of these guys brought to the table. And this game right here that you're watching, his massive performance against the Milwaukee Bucks, in which he scored, if I'm not mistaken, like 32 some points. I think that remains his career high. And it was always a sight to see him out there doing some crazy things, whether he's uncannily driving to the rim and making the shot or knocking it down from 3-point distance. But at the end of the day, this is an upgrade. This is something that you absolutely had to do. A move that you absolutely had to make, assuming the cost that you had to pay here. And again, I haven't looked at any of the additional pieces here. I don't know if somebody else was included in this deal, but I'll tell you this right now. This was a solid ass addition for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had to pull the trigger on it. This, to me, I don't know how Koby Altman got it done. I know that there had been so much talk in regards to Atlanta, wanting to move off of Hunter, and I never really thought that they would be able to scoop him up for the asking price that was reported at the time. But I'll tell you this. Koby Altman deserves his damn flowers, and I hope you guys are giving it to him now, because this is a a hell of a starting five. And again, this is assuming that DeAndre Hunter is going to usurp Max Strus in that starting lineup and bump him into a reserve role, which I think that Max Strus is wholly suited for. And the best thing about Max is that he has basically told you, hey, look, I don't care whether I start or come off the bench. I just want to contribute to winning. And that's the type of mentality that I can get behind, because Max can still be a high minute role player off this Cavaliers bench. And when you think about what he can actually do from a 3-and-D standpoint out there, Hunter just makes so much sense. One of the things that I was looking at when I was creating, the docs for this emergency pod was how impactful that he would be as a catch and shooter in this Cavaliers offense. Now, I want you guys to take a look at this graphic right here. Prior to this trade, these were the leaders in terms of catch and shoot options for the Cavaliers. George Niang was leading the way with 85 total catch and shoot triples on 40.9%. You had Donovan Mitchell with 76 at 43.4%. DeAndre Hunter, you see his name right there, would be third right now on this Cavaliers team with 75 on a very good 39.3%. Sam Merrill is at 72. Darius Garland's knocked down 66. Dean Wade with 50. Evan Mobley, that's a big thing right there. 46 triples via the catch and shoot variety on 42.6%. And Max Strus, who has knocked down 44 in his short span of time this year on 39.3% as well. So as you can see, DeAndre Hunter would be the third, has the third most. Basically, he has the third most, and a lot of those are coming from above the break. That should be noted, not necessarily in the corners, but he has shown a willingness to take that shot from either corner and has been very proficient in the left corner. And that's something to me that should be taken into consideration. It just blows my mind. It just blows my mind whole that that they were able to accomplish what they are able to accomplish. Again, you look at this right here. You got Darius under contract for the foreseeable future. You have Donovan under contract for the foreseeable future. You got Jarrett under contract. You got Evan under contract. You still have Isaac. You still have Max. You still have Dean. And you didn't have to surrender Jalen Tyson. Obviously, the Cavaliers have some decisions to make in free agency and whether or not they're going to re-sign the likes of Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, et cetera. But I think that they can field a really good roster. And one of the best things about what they have done in terms of some of the assets from a developmental standpoint is they've gotten some young players in the pipeline that will eventually be good enough to step up in their cost-controlled assets, right? Whether it be a Jalen Tyson, whether it be an Emoni Bates or a Luke Travers, guys that could, Craig Porter Jr., who's already under contract right now, JT Thor, I'm not really sure how things are going to pan out with him, but the point of the matter is that they have guys that could potentially develop and take on some of these back end of rotation roles that could be cheap. It's just awesome. It's just awesome, man. I was blown away that they were able to get this put together. And I would love to know from you guys, does this make the Cavaliers a bona fide title contender? Does this make them a bona fide title contender? Do you believe that this gets them over the proverbial over the proverbial top, over a team like the Boston Celtics? Do you believe that? They're not a perfect team. They still have pieces to fix. They still need to get a third big. You're trading George Niang means they kind of have to address that position, because you can't necessarily rely upon Dean Wade to stay healthy, and he is the only other player on the roster that's capable of playing the power forward position, unless you are giving DeAndre Hunter a solid amount of minutes at the four, which, as I said, he can do. He has spent basically half of his minutes this year playing the power forward. But if you're starting DeAndre Hunter, the minute staggering is going to kind of be a little odd if you don't have somebody else other than Dean Wade that can play those minutes. Are you going to elevate a JT Thor? Are you going to sign a third big? I don't know. But I think the Cavaliers took a step closer towards title contention. And I know a lot of people from a defensive standpoint, let me just cue this right on up here. This man, this guy in DeAndre Hunter, he ain't no slouch on the defensive end. He is, in my opinion, a 3-and-D type of wing out there. Look at his work on Jaylen Brown here. This was last year, not necessarily this year, but this whole clip montage showcases from last year to this year, and a lot of them have been matchups with Boston. He's staying in front of Jalen. He's quick enough on his feet at 7 with a 7.2 wingspan. He has enough of a reach out there to really bother some of the bigger wings in the NBA. And I think that really starts with the Boston Celtics, with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Here you see him manning up and matching up against Kristaps Porzingis, holding him scoreless right there on that possession. This guy takes the challenge on the defensive end. And I think it's exactly what you need. A guy that isn't necessarily a specialist, right? He's not just a shooter. He's not just a catch and shoot specialist out there. He's not just a defender on the perimeter. He is a guy that legitimately is a two-way player. And I think being insulated with the backline of defense in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen will only make him look better. He's just not a one-dimensional player. Look at that block right there. He's not a one-dimensional player. And to me, I'm just astounded that they were able to pull this off. I know I keep saying that, but it still has not sunk in yet. Seriously. I mean, he's locking shit down. And the statistics will tell you this. I have to point this out because he's not necessarily been the most, from an efficiency standpoint on the defensive end, it's not necessarily looked great on paper. Again, 48.9% is what he has limited his opponents to from the field this season. But I just don't think you can put all your faith in numbers all the time. There has to be context added to that. To me, he has the build, he has the frame, he has the size, he has the length, and then I think he will eventually have the mindset that earned him ACC Defensive Player of the Year at the college level. This is a man who knows how to play defense. He just has to get back to it. And what better place to do that than in Cleveland, where the Cavaliers have been on the, have been one of the best defensive teams in basketball for the last couple of seasons. It started with JB Bickerstaff, and they have not lost a step on the defensive end under Kenny Atkinson, despite taking a massive leap forward on the offensive end. And I think that adding a player the caliber of DeAndre Hunter out on the wings should only continuously make this team better as the future wears on. You're getting him on a manageable deal. Again, he's under contract for the next 3 seasons. It never goes truly above 26 mil. And if you have to pivot eventually off of his contract, you should be able to recoup some assets down the line. This deal just makes way too much sense to me. And I love it because I was really scared. I was really scared that they were going to have to sacrifice not only Jalen Tyson, but the likes of that pick too, that first round pick. Absolutely. Mega MC3 says Koby Altman is the GOAT, an absolute masterclass trade. We're going to the finals. Boston, your days are numbered. Hell yeah. Fuck Boston. I know I'm talking a lot, but I'll tell you what, man. We have to see it play out on court. We have to see it play out on court before we anoint them as the favorites, because as of right now, Boston is still probably the favorite in the Eastern Conference in the eyes of a lot of analysts and pundits out there. Maybe not in Cleveland, but in the NBA landscape, I think a lot of people still view Boston as a superior team. But this trade, this shit right here, this puts them over the top, in my opinion. And I hope that you guys are as excited that I am. Tony Monfort says, Mac, we gave 2026 and 2028 swap, not even 2030 and 2031. Beautiful. Koby Altman, beautiful trade. Masterclass, as Mega MC3 said down there. He also says, crazy part is that there are still more moves that they could make. That's just how much of a masterclass this is. Koby could be cooking up more. I absolutely believe he is. I was of the mindset when I woke up this morning, I'm like, I'm not sure if this shit's going to happen. And I would be okay if they made a move on the buyout market, assuming they acquired another wing, preferably a tall one, or a third big, somebody who can actually give you spot minutes in the rotation if necessary. But this is so much better because of the price that was paid. And as I see down here, people saying that they're going to miss Caris LeVert. I will too. For all the flack that Caris LeVert receives, and I know last night is not going to leave a good, a lasting image in our minds that is good, because it left a nasty taste in my mouth. But Caris LeVert, he added a lot, and he truly was at points one of the better players for this team in some of the postseason runs, if you can really call him that. But he stepped up. at times. And I know he struggled with consistency, but he was really off to a solid start this year prior to that injury. And whether or not you think he deserved to be traded or not, I don't think you can argue that the return wasn't or wasn't worth it. Because anytime you can acquire a player like DeAndre Hunter, knowing full well that Caris LeVert needs a new contract, he has an expiring deal, and it only costs you LeVert and Niang, I think, who is not necessarily going to be in the Cavaliers' plans long term, you don't necessarily not pull the trigger. You have to make the deal. This deal just made too much sense. Me Not You asks, do you think they are done? No, I think they will make at least one more acquisition because you have just acquired DeAndre Hunter. It's a 2-for-1 as of now, if I'm reading it correctly. So you have 2 spots open right now. I think they make at least one more addition on the buyout market because the NBA makes it mandatory. I think that you have to have at least 14 players signed. So I don't know if you are going to elevate one of the one of the two ways, or you're going to sign a veteran on the buyout market. It makes a lot of sense to do either or, but no, I do not think they're finished. Rusty Wagner says, I'd put Hunter on Brown. Absolutely. You saw that shit. I put the clip out there again. Let me play it again for anybody who's just now joining. Look at the defense on Brown here. This was last year. Yes, Brown will get his. Brown is a terrific player on both ends of the floor himself, but you can tell clearly the defense that he is able to stay in front of Jalen. He has the length to make shots difficult on him. He can contest shots properly without drawing too many fouls on the defensive end. All of these possessions, look at that. That is lockdown defense on one of the best players on in the NBA at the offensive side of the ball. And then he has the length, to play up a position defensively, guarding guys like Kristaps Porzingis, who can easily shoot over most people out there. He's just positionally versatile. There's another possession defensively on Brown. That's the type of player that the Cavaliers have been missing for a very long time. That is the type of player that you have to trade for. And again, you have to see how this is going to play out. You have to see whether or not, because on paper it looks good as hell, but we have seen this play out on a number of occasions where teams are anointed prior to them actually taking the field or the court. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. A lot of people in here already know that. Some of you don't, but something that still haunts me, something, maybe Claw, if you're in here, something that still haunts me is the comments that were made by one Vince Young back 12, 13 plus years ago, where he declared the Philadelphia Eagles the dream team. That squad that they put together, during that season, Michael Vick and company, LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, all these guys that were still part of the organization, and Vince Young making that declaration prior to them even touching the field. We know, I just say all that to simply to put out there. We have to see how it plays out on the court, but at least on paper right now, considering the price, this deal was well worth it. And I think from both an offensive and defensive perspective, you're going to see them skyrocket to a new level. It may take some time from a chemistry standpoint. It may take some time from to figure out what's going to happen with the rotations in the front court, but I think it's going to be awesome. Rusty Wagner says, that was like 20 years ago. Christ, it flies. It truly does. I mean, I did not think I would be talking about the dream team with Vince Young making that comment. It feels like forever ago. Dr. Claw, he is in here. He says, man, I remember I was frustrated that Andy was out here calling plays like Vince Young was Vic when he should have been using the backup package to use for AJ Feely. Cook, man, cook. Razor 531 says the problem becomes guarding Pritchard, Horford, White, and Porzingis. I'm not necessarily convinced that that's a problem because Ty Jerome has shown that he is a capable defender. You kept Isaac Okoro. He is a capable defender. Max Strus is likely going to slide to the bench. And the problem with Max Strus is not that he's a bad defender. It's that Max Strus has been forced to play up a position defensively. He is not a true small forward. He is a shooting guard. So this is an amazing pickup, right? You allow him to go out there and play his more natural position off the bench. If you can pick somebody up in free agency like a Torrey Craig or Ben Simmons who can play defense, you're okay. You're okay. I love this. And I think that it pushed them. I think this pushes them closer to being the prohibitive favorites. I don't think they're not quite there yet. They still have some areas to address, but let me tell you, I'm not worried about the Peyton Pritchards and the Porzingises of the world, because as Claw says down here, Allen held his own against Zingis, and he truly does each and every time he's out there. Let's not forget, we still have Evan Mobley, and you saw one of the possessions out there where Hunter can and does have the length to generate solid defensive pressure on Porzingis in the painted area or in the mid range, right? So I think that I'm really not necessarily worried about the back end of the rotation. I think they will figure something out, but this is a step in the right direction. Again, you have your top 8 players in your rotation under contract for at least the next year and a half. You still have some time for the players that are in the developmental stages of their career to develop and turn into solid back end rotation players, whether that be Emoni Bates is like a 9th or 10th man, or Luke Travers finally developing a perimeter shot and putting it all together, because he has glue guy written all over him. Whether that be Jalen Tyson solidifying himself as a rotation piece. I think that is close. I think that is close to happening. I'm already on the precipice of saying that Jalen Tyson with this move should be elevated to the to at least to no worse than the 9th man in the rotation. But without a true third big out there, I don't know. The Cavaliers have to address that spot. But this is going to push some people forward, and I think this is what the Cavaliers were waiting for. So everybody who's complained about Koby Altman not jumping in and making a trade the past 2 deadlines, it all leads to somewhere, right? I think, and I'm still of the mindset that Koby Altman did not see the window for title contention open until this year with what has happened with Kenny Atkinson. He didn't see it last year, rightfully so. He didn't see it the year prior, rightfully so. So what did the Cavaliers do? They went out and they made acquisitions on the buyout market. In 2022-23, it was Danny Green. In 2023-24, it was Marcus Morris. It was trending in that direction this year until Cleveland started to play the way that they that they have, and you saw that DeAndre Hunter was available for the price that he was, and that Atlanta was ready to move off him. And this has just been an absolutely mind fuck of a trade season. We've seen Luka Doncic be moved for Anthony Davis. We've seen Kyle Kuzma be moved for Chris Middleton. We've seen Quentin Grimes be acquired. We've seen a number of other moves, some already escaping me, but this is about his big time and about his blockbuster as they come for the Cavaliers, considering the price that it took to coach them, to not coach them, to acquire them. Mike Royston says, do you think that Koby Altman made this trade after the Bucks got 0 Kyle Kuzma and after he had to watch DG try to guard Tatum the other night? So, quick aside, Darius Garland, I don't know if I have the film anymore. I'm going to try and find it. But Darius Garland has actually held up pretty damn well in isolation against Jason Tatum. So I don't think that was a moving piece. I know that's talking point. I know a lot of people out there are going to love to use the Tatum Garland mismatch defensively as a sticking point in terms of why the Cavaliers needed a wing like this. But no, the stats actually show you, and the film actually shows you, that Darius Garland has held up very well in isolation against Jason Tatum. So no, I don't think that. But I think that this move absolutely helps, because you have a body on there. You have a body out there in Hunter that can reasonably guard Tatum and Brown. Love it. Absolutely love it for them. And now you have this front court that is oversized. You got Hunter, you got Mobley, you got Allen, 2 7-footers basically, and a guy out there at 6'7", 6'8" with a 7.2 wingspan who can muck things up defensively. It actually gives you a lot of confidence, despite the size limitations of your backcourt in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, who have actually turned up the heat defensively under Kenny Atkinson. They have played some of the best defense of their career. And the thing that we know about the Boston Celtics is that they switch everything, and they try and pick on the entry points in your defense, right? They tend to do that. They make sure George Niang was one of those guys. Darius Garland is heavily thought of one of those guys in the starting lineup where you can exploit him via the mismatch, via the switch. But they have not necessarily been successful doing that against Darius. They're successful against other players. Hell, I saw Sam Merrill, and I love Sam. Sam's been awesome defensively this year. Maybe not awesome, but he's been better than he was last year and has actually held his ground. There were a number of possessions in which I saw Sam Merrill attempting to defend Jason Tatum, and I'm just like, my God, this guy's going to get cooked. And that's exactly what happened at points during some of these possessions. And by no fault of Merrill. Merrill's just undersized. When you have a player like Tatum who can literally just shoot over you if you're a 6'4", 6'5" Sam Merrill, it's just not a fair, it's not a fair matchup. Having Hunter out there gives you the ability to truly throw him out there on the better perimeter players out there in a Brown or a Tatum or a White, right? You have options. You have options. And I think this is about as good as Cavaliers fans could have hoped for. A lot of people were hoping for Cam Johnson. And I would have been just as happy with Cam Johnson. Honestly, I thought over the past couple of days, I thought Cam Johnson probably would have been a cleaner fit from a catch and shoot aspect. But when you dive deep into some of the things that Hunter allows you to do on both ends of the floor, just as happy considering the cost, right? We hope he stays healthy, have just as much of an injury history and worries, injury woes surrounding Hunter as there are around Johnson, around Wade, or anybody else that you can think of out there for the Cavaliers. But now you have at least 2 to 3 of these guys that, you know, at some point you have to think that's going to level out. Somebody's going to stay healthy. Somebody's going to be able to be on that court. And now you're probably going to be able to keep both of them upright because you're not going to have to force them into some tight situations, and guys, you're not going to have to play up a position. And, you know, Kenny was already trending in the right direction in terms of not putting a lot of minutes on guys during the regular season. So everybody should be relatively fresh. It's just awesome. Vice Romer 123 says Wade, Okoro, Hunter, and Nasty. Yes, from a defensive standpoint, I think the Cavaliers absolutely got better. They got better overall on both sides of the ball, but you did this deal and you kept the likes of Dean and you kept the likes of Okoro. That is just awesome. You didn't have to send Tyson out. How many of you guys were worried that Jalen Tyson would be included in this deal? I know I was, or at least the pick. And while that probably would have been okay if it was Caris and Tyson, or you had to include Tyson, I would have pulled the trigger. Make no mistake. And I hope nobody takes that the wrong way as me giving up on Jalen Tyson. But when you look at the window that the Cavaliers have, when you look at the window that the Cavaliers are working with, I would have made the deal if it included Tyson, but I would not have made the deal if it included Tyson and the pick. You see what I'm saying? But they managed to do it, and they didn't have to include either. So it's just fucking awesome. Razor 531 says, do you think they should get a backup center? Absolutely. If not a backup center, you have to get a third big, somebody who can play the 4 and the 5. Somebody who can play the 4 or the 5, right? Because right now you're wholly reliant until you sign somebody, assuming you're not an elevating JT Thor or somebody, you're wholly relying on Dean Wade to stay healthy. You're wholly relying upon DeAndre Hunter to give you good minutes when he has staggered to play backup 4. And you're relying upon the likes of maybe an Isaac Okoro to play small ball 4 when he returns. Jalen Tyson can do the same thing. Jalen's played a 30+% of his minutes at the power forward position, but he's not a true big. So yes, I think you have to sign somebody. I think it'll happen. Not sure what it will be. I haven't paid attention to my phone just yet. I'm in the chat here with you guys. So if some other deal has been made since this was announced, I'm finding out when you guys are. But yeah, they're not done yet. They can't be done yet. And I think that they have opened the window officially. They flung it open, right? They have truly opened that window for title contention. And I think this makes us the best team in the East if we weren't already. I think this really gives us the ammunition that we need to compete with the Bostons of the world, because people all the live long day were saying the Cavaliers need a rangy wing. They need somebody who can defend the Tatums and the Browns of the world. And they have that. They truly do now. HJ17 Gaming says buyout market probably. I don't see another deal coming. It's absolutely probably going to be the buyout market. Young Gohan says, I hope the buyout market is good. I think it will be. And by the way, if you guys are watching over on X, like a number of you are, do me a favor. Doesn't take you too long. Head over to YouTube. The link should be in the description and hit that like button. Help a brother out. Subscribe if you're not yet subscribed to the It's Cavalier podcast, and hit that notification bell so you know when I'm going live. Now, this was an emergency podcast. Make no mistake. I try and go live after every big sequence, every big trade, every big game, really every game this season. But I had this one cooked up for a while because I just had I had the idea that this was going to happen today. So I put together all this stuff last night mostly. Isn't that foreboding? Isn't that foreboding? As soon as I watched Caris LeVert play the way that he did, I immediately got to work with this post game, not post game, this emergency podcast, because I just had a feeling that it was going to happen. I truly did. Linger says, I love this trade. You don't know how excited I am. I'm right there with you, man. I am right there with you. I don't know how this is going to look on the court, but for right now, it looks amazing to me considering what you had to give up. DeAndre Hunter is a Cleveland Cavalier. As it says on today's show, DeAndre Hunter is a Cav. DeAndre Hunter is a Cav. DeAndre Hunter is a Cav. And on and on and on. It's just awesome. I'm sad to see LeVert. I'm sad to see Niang go, but sorry, guys, you got to go if this is the type of acquisition that can be pulled off. And you know where the contractual situation was headed in terms of LeVert. And I don't believe that Niang was in the long-term plans of this team, but I'm still sad to see those guys go. Hopefully the Cavaliers aren't finished. I'd love to hear what you guys, if you're not watching this live, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on this trade are in the comment section below, but that's probably the best place to leave it at. Again, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you want to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to It's Cavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you said invite. One more time, if you're watching on X, do your boy a favor. Hit that like button over on YouTube. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Go Cavs.